Prego, buongiorno, grazie mille for listening. You're back here. Content is for closers. We have a very special Italian episode for you today. But before we get to that, Carlton, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I was just wondering, are you Italian? Is that what your nationality is?
You know, I get asked that a lot, or people, I should say, assume that. Especially as my hair gets longer, it curls. And I just met a guy last week who came up to me and said something in Italian. I can't remember what he said.
Oh,
And
that's amazing.
I was like, oh, don't know what that is, but yeah, I am an Italian, adopted Italian, I'd say.
There you go. Hey, that's all you need is the Italians to adopt you and put you in the family and keep you safe.
Yeah. Quick, funny caveat on that. My wife and I went to Italy for a couple weeks, 5-6 years ago now, and had a driver at one point, booked it through Costco, middle class, and had a driver at one point that could not speak English at all. And so we were trying to describe where we wanted to go. We were going from city to city, and I spoke enough broken Spanish and he spoke enough broken Spanish. And that's actually how we communicated, because neither of us could figure out the other language. So
I was thinking about all of the hundreds of responses we get about our lame game of the week or our icebreaker. And after evaluating all of the responses, I think it's best to just not do an icebreaker. I think the consensus is that they don't really care about random points in our past, Adam. So
sad to hear.
So I think we're safer. I think just offering hot takes, right? So we've got have you heard? We need another H thing. So we're gonna do hot takes. And
Okay.
I was thinking, if you don't know Adam personally, he's just great off the cuff. So he actually prefers that we don't even discuss these. So
that is true.
For all he knows, I could just be asking him something completely random and offensive to him. I guess if we did it live, it would be a little harder.
Yeah, this is highly edited. This is actually the 16th time I've done this hot take.
So here's the hot take. We've got some news coming out of Twitter this week, with good old Jack leaving Twitter.
Yeah.
Do you think Twitter is going to be better or worse without Jack? That's the hot take for today.
Better or worse? Okay. Well, personally, I'm a pretty big fan of Jack. I think he's a really great entrepreneur. I agree with a lot of his just view on the world, view on technology. And do I think net better or worse? I guess I won't go. I think it will be net worse over time. I think some of the things that people have been like, I guess Twitter made a rule where you can't share photos of private individuals without their consent. Generally, I'm on board for that. I know the internet is against that right now, but I don't think that's a bad thing. But I just think that they'll miss his leadership and at times succumb to the whims of the far left instead of being a little bit more balanced, which I think he did a good job of.
Interesting.
What do you think?
So my take is that they're gonna do better.
Okay.
So yeah, as someone who likes to eat and more than one meal a day, and someone who doesn't like to multitask, I think he's got his time split between Square and Twitter, and
very good point.
I think if you can't devote all your attention and leadership to something, then there's always going to be this tension. So by him having to just focus on one thing, I think Square is going to do better. And I think with someone who has the full attention and focus on Twitter will probably help. If you look at the comparative growth, I mean, Twitter is actually they haven't done great under his leadership. So you're really looking at like a quarter of the growth of a lot of their competitors, even if you compare it with smaller companies. So I do think that, I think the reason why he left is a little weird. I'm still curious to know why exactly. I think there might be something under the surface. Some people have, suggested that maybe Square is trying to get federal whatever that is, verification for becoming like a federal bank of some sort, and maybe they couldn't have, he couldn't be double dipping if that was the case. I don't know.
Oh, interesting.
So I've heard some
Yeah,
interesting theories, but nothing concrete.
I probably should have clarified before I jumped in. I guess in terms of stock performance, I agree with you. I think it will perform better as a stock. I was more talking about like the experience from a user's standpoint.
Yeah.
I've heard similar rumblings. I've also in the crypto world, there's a pretty strong theory that he was too Bitcoin maxi for where Twitter wants to head, and a lot of their investors are, Andreessen Horowitz obviously have some pretty strong opinions in the NFT space, and so anyway, I could see a number of those things being true.
Yeah, no, those are interesting thoughts as well. I guess we have to like put a disclaimer now that this is not financial advice, and we are not.
I feel like if you take this as financial advice, that's like you deserve any losses that you sustain.
I've just been hoping to add that at some point in our podcast.
Good point.
Maybe we could have Gaetano, our guest. He could do like a little rap thing.
Gaetano Dinardi.
Sorry,
yeah,
Gaetano.
No worries. Yeah, he definitely could sing something for us. We should have had him do like a hook for us or something like that.
That would have been amazing.
Yeah. Before we get to Gaetano, though, Carlton, I hope, unless you're also murdering this segment, are we still allowed to tell people things we've heard, or is that
all the people love Have You Heard?
Okay, cool.
So we'll keep going with that. So my Have You Heard? I guess I'll go first. This isn't that groundbreaking, but you mentioned Costco earlier. I was gonna do like the hot take was gonna be Costco or Sam's, but I feel like that's a little too easy. We have not had a Costco membership for a while, and we finally got one, and because of our son needing diapers. And so the Kirkland brand is pretty amazing. I gotta give a shout out to Kirkland. Just the quality of their diapers is like a step up. And then their cheese, man, like I've been hooked on their cheese. So related to content though, it's funny for all of these grocery stores like Costco and Trader Joe's. I'm always super impressed and amazed at the different content that comes out for these different brands. And so, as a brand, you've done a good thing if you've got like, I think I searched and there's like 5 or 6 podcasts dedicated to Trader Joe's, 5 or 6 podcasts dedicated to Costco. So, that's a goal as a big brand like that. If you can have people loving your brand so much that they create content on their own, user generated content, then I feel like you've got something good going.
Yeah, that's good. I agree. Hard agree on Costco. Their Kirkland band specifically, they do a great job, especially like in like their putter, for instance, is like on par with Scotty Cameron, one of the best putters in the world. Things like that, they do a really good job with. And the whole episode today is around demand gen and how you take what that means, first of all, and then how you develop it as a practice within your business. And that's a great kind of out of left field example, but where your products and your brand are so compelling that you have people creating. I didn't even know that exists, but creating shows around that. That's a good example. And something. If you don't have a Costco membership, shout out Costco. Mine is a little. I've talked about this before, but Traction is the book I'm going to shout out today. Have you heard? Now, some of you have heard of Traction, and so you're immediately turned off by this because there are like zealots who pursue Traction or evangelize it. I'm not one of those people, but as you're going into your 2022 planning, as we are sort of wrapping up and doing at the moment, I got to tell you, it's extremely helpful. I've stiff armed this book and this process, the EOS system, for like 2 or 3 years. And kind of wish I hadn't now, because it's really, I think it's got a lot of helpful structure for leaders who are going through that process. And so we're doing some stuff content wise that it's explaining that process that we're going through. But specifically for the Have You Heard for this week, I think people should, if you're going through that process, if you're going through 2022 planning, consider at least checking out the book Traction.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know from a high level thing, the author of that's doing some other content things as well, where you can dive in. He's got a lot of content for free, so whatever that URL is, we can link to that as well.
Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes below. But today, as I said, is all about demand generation. And Gaetano DiNardi, as I kind of said in the intro, has been doing this for a while. Has been doing it for Nextiva, who you've probably heard of, and is now just transitioned to Aura. And I think this was a pretty fun episode. He is a super unique and talented guy, from what he's doing on the corporate side to his music career, and everything in between. So let's get to the interview with Gaetano DiNardi. Our guest today is the notorious Gaetano DiNardi, who is the VP of Growth at Aura.io, where he heads up growth for the team dedicated to creating a safer internet for everyone. Prior to this role, he was the head of growth and demand gen at Nextiva, where he helped generate over $40 million in annual recurring revenue. I met Gaetano before all of that during his sales hacker days, and his transparent and growth focused mindset really struck a chord with me. And I think as you listen to the episode, you'll hear what I mean. He doesn't talk like your average marketer. He doesn't act like your average marketer. He acts and thinks like a musician or an inventor who is taking the most efficient, artistic approach to creating growth. I said that on purpose. Those normally don't go together, but with him, it's combining both artistry and efficiency in the way that he works and creates. During this episode, G shared how demand gen works, how he has dealt with imposter syndrome over his career, and how you can build inbound growth at your company. I thoroughly enjoyed this episode. I really think that you will too. Let's get into it with our resident R&B king, Gaetano DiNardi. All right, we've got Gaetano DiNardi. Did I say that correctly?
You said it really good, almost like an Italian.
Okay, all right, good. That's what I like to hear. We got Gaetano, so many things. Like, I feel like we could start a million different places here. We're talking beforehand about Miami, Puerto Rico, the Yankees suck. Like, I feel like there's a lot we could get into. But I guess let's start with what your most recent work. So you're coming off just wrapping up 3 years leading Nextiva. Which, by the way, speaking of the Yankees, you can't watch a baseball game without seeing Nextiva all over the place. So you guys are doing something right over there.
Yeah, dude. We've taken a stance on getting beyond bottom of funnel, which is tough. In fact, I was talking to Dan Sanchez from B2B Growth earlier today, and I told him something that he was surprised about, and that is that every company I've ever been at in my career, they've always wanted me to be hyper focused on bottom of funnel activities. Mm-hmm. And as a marketer, that kind of pains your heart because you want to do more brand building. You want to do more creative marketing. You want to do more interesting shit. But at the same time, there's pressure for growth, leads, pipeline. And those results come from certain channels. And so you're locked into PPC, SEO, affiliates. That is what you're kind of stuck in. You don't have much of a opportunity to do things like, cool YouTube pre-roll retargeting videos or cold-based intent targeting on YouTube pre-roll. You don't have as much opportunity to do that. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. And so you were there for 3 years, head of growth and demand gen, or are there, I guess, still kind of wrapping up. But maybe just tell us, what were some of your objectives going into it, and then how did it go? I know some of the numbers behind it just from what you shared, but just be curious, from your point of view, how the last 3 years have gone.
Yeah. So when I landed there, the company was $70 million in annual revenue. And then today, fast forward to now, it's over $200 million in annual revenue. So a lot of growth in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
And, every fast growing company now wants to get to $1 billion. Everybody wants to figure out, how do you get from 250, 300 to $1 billion? And how do you do that in like 4 years? And the thing that's nuts is like the company has been around since like 2008, and it took them a long time to get to that 70 mil. But then in the last 3 years, how has there been such explosive growth? And there's been a number of factors. It's been evolving beyond being a two-trick pony, which the company was when I got there. They ranked for business VoIP. And then they had paid marketing, which was PPC and affiliates. So I consider that to be a two-trick pony. So one of the objectives was help us evolve beyond that, grow out an organic flywheel content strategy, understanding the different types of customer segments at a deeper level, and creating content experiences that will resonate. And then really an attack plan on keywords, building out an attack plan to go beyond just business VoIP. Like we've got to hit all these different buckets, and we can get into all that. But that really was the main objective, was pipeline growth, expanding beyond being a two-trick pony, rebuilding and restructuring a team, recruiting, and then catching up to the big boys, being a scrappy underdog, private company, the only private company that hadn't raised money up until recently. The company raised $200 million from Goldman Sachs, and almost now $3 billion valuation. But that's nothing when you compare it to giants like Zoom and RingCentral, and now Microsoft Teams, who has gotten into the VoIP UCaaS space. Right. And so it was, to recap, broadening the marketing mix, rebuilding and restructuring and recruiting a kick-ass team, and then scrapping back and fighting back against the big boys.
Yeah. So I want to ask you about one of those specifically, because I know some people who have gone to work for you and have all had a great experiences doing so. But zoom out a second, just for our audience is kind of, we're a lot of content marketers, maybe some business owners, et cetera. Give us a quick, whatever synopsis definition of how you view demand gen from a high level, just to add some context to what you're talking about with some of these executions.
Yeah. So the default sort of perception of what it is just lead gen, and that's not true.
Inbound.
Yeah. Well,
right.
I guess I really, that one may be up for debate.
Okay.
Like some people can say that demand gen is a mix of inbound and outbound. It can be account-based marketing, which is very narrow marketing that's oriented toward a set of target accounts, versus the very cast a wide net style marketing, where you rank for things like commercial phone service, and then you have an affiliate partnership that is occupying multiple search results for things like business phone service, business phone system, commercial phone service, virtual phone service, internet-based phone service for business, cloud phone service, right? So you get the picture. Like on and on and on and on. Google has not recognized, in many cases, the relationship between virtual phone system and cloud phone system, for example. And so it treats those search results as individual. Meanwhile, the intent is the same. So when it gets down to demand gen, how do I define it? What do I think it is? To me, it's attracting, influencing, and educating the market. You're, generating demand, creating demand, influencing and educating is part of that. And then I think, the ultimate measure for high quality demand gen is really, you have leading indicators and lagging indicators. For me, the leading is, do we have good traffic, good quality traffic, the right kind of people coming to the site? How is the consumption of our content and our marketing? Is the message being consumed? Is it resonating? Do we have high time on page? Do people click through to multiple pages within the site during a session? What is our ratio of new traffic to repeat visitor traffic that is not customers? So you have those leading things. And then the lagging is, to me, very simple. It's pipeline and revenue conversions, marketing influenced and sourced revenue and pipeline. That to me is how I would think about it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think that's a really good encapsulation. A lot of times I think we jump to the lagging when we're talking about, like, is this working or not? But to your point, there's all these indicators or little check signals that you can see along the way to help you understand, like, yes, it is working and the lagging is going to come, or it should be coming, and there's something else we need to check on. That's a good description. Okay, so you're building a demand gen team. You've got this company that is a bit of an underdog, but is doing some stuff. I mean, there's $70 million or whatever, and so you come and you're tasked with building out a team. And the moniker I kept hearing, like on social and stuff, is like, we're building the Warriors. We're bringing the Warriors together. This is like when the Warriors were, the Warriors. So talk a little bit about that. Like, it seems like you guys have a lot of fun. I'm buddies with Jeremy Boudinot, and I know you guys are tight. So talk about just, that process and how you've built that team out over there.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I kind of do like to think of us as the Warriors in some ways. Of course, the Warriors have won many championships, and we did not win any championships at Nextiva. I can't necessarily say that we conquered the category or have become a category leader, but I think we did succeed in making a significant dent in taking away market share from some of the other players that have been so dominant. And one that I'll just tip my hat to is RingCentral. I mean, they're just a monster player. No way around it. They were ranking for things like cloud phone system back in 2011. That just goes to tell you how far ahead of the curve they were.
Yeah.
And you just have to respect that. There's just no way around it. But I knew that in fighting back against players like RingCentral and Vonage and 8x8 and Zoom, we were going to need some really high quality players. And so I kind of dipped into my Rolodex and recruited people that I had either partnered up with while I was at Sales Hacker and did some really good co-marketing campaigns with. Jeremy Boudinot, of course, one of those guys, phenomenal marketer, great copywriter, understands content, just good human, chemistry. I think chemistry is what I will say about this equation. Alina Benny came along with me from Sales Hacker. Then we recruited a guy named Joe Manna, phenomenal product marketer, copywriter, content wizard. I recruited a paid media mastermind. Her name is Susan Winograd. She's just all around beast level. More than 15 years of experience doing paid marketing, conversion rate optimization, link building, and then we layered on ABM at the very end, which is, in its early stage. But I think chemistry, yes, that is how I would summarize all of this. The reason it was so good and it worked so well, I don't want to pat myself on the back too much and say that I'm this great visionary, but I know chemistry, I know feeling, and you can't teach that. And so I recruit for chemistry and for good human beings that have common sense marketing skills, but also, not just theory-based marketers, people who can actually get in there and do stuff, because marketing fails at execution when it fails. And I want to see people who have actually done shit in real life, who maybe have had side projects themselves, grown an email list on their own, built an audience or a following on their own, doing something. That's the kind of things that I look for. And then tying it all together with chemistry, just good chemistry. That is key.
I love that, because marketing fails at execution. That's a great little, we're definitely you'll see that somewhere on social, like clip that we'll put up here, because totally agree. And I think so much of our failure as marketers is this like navel gazing we get into on like, are we following the funnel, or is it awareness and and none of that really matters when it's like game time and you have to execute. And totally agree with that. And I think your ability, or the theory of kind of going with your gut and building this chemistry, speaks to who you are as a person, but also as an artist, right? Like you're not a tradition. I wouldn't say you're a traditional, like me. Like I didn't go to a traditional business school. I actually don't know where you went to school, but you don't strike me as a traditional like business school guy. And I think part of that is because of, some of the other things that you have done. So maybe stepping back a little bit. I know you're a huge, musician. You love music. That's a huge passion area of yours. First of all, where did that come from? And then how do you think that's filtered your view of marketing and how you build teams and all that?
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good question. You're asking some doozies, man. Thanks for bringing this out of me. So yeah, dude, I went to, by the way, where I went to school, I went to my undergraduate State University of New York at Cortland, which is, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. I'm just going to say it. It's a place where New York City kids go to just party and have fun.
Okay.
There wasn't much learning that was done there. Okay. Right. What you learn more than anything else at a place like that is how to work with people and discipline, like how to show up on time, get your work done. But it wasn't incredibly challenging work. Then my graduate for my graduate study, I went to New York Institute of Technology. Oh. And what I thought that I was going to do with my life was be a creative director. I wanted to be like a UX UI creative mastermind, and I was in classes learning things like Adobe After Effects, all these sorts of things. I wanted to be like leading a creative unit at a company.
Sure.
And maybe that ties into like who I am as a musician. I'm a creative guy, got a lot of passion and soul, stuff like that. And I fell ass backwards into marketing because I was blogging about and I was writing about my experiences as a music producer coming up in New York, and people were finding my articles online. For example, I wrote a post called "How Atlantic Records Ghosted Me." And people were searching for things like how to get a meeting at Atlantic Records, and they were finding my shit. And like random people were hitting me up like, "Oh my God, dude, I can't believe that happened to you. Like, wow, like it's such an unspoken thing. Like you don't hear about this. Nobody ever writes about what happens behind the scenes." And then I started promoting my shit on Facebook, and this was like back in 2012, running some ads and like getting huge traction and engagement. And then I fell in love with marketing from right there. So
you backed into it as a result of, when you say you were promoting your music or
so this is the hilarious part. I wasn't even promoting my music. I was promoting my articles, the things I had written.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. Because
you were doing demand gen.
I was doing demand gen. Yeah. What I was doing, I was plugging my music into the articles.
I see.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But what I had realized was, shit, this is actually good for engagement, but it's vanity. You know why? Because the audience, who's consuming this? Other musicians, other music producers. They're never going to be fans. They're going to respect me and admire me, but this is not how to build a fan base. This is not going to get people to come to shows and subscribe to me and promote me and stuff. And then when I look at the audience details and the analytics, you see, 90% male, and I'm making R&B music, something's not adding up. And it's right.
Yeah.
So that is demand gen. Yeah. That is demand gen. Regular bullshit marketing would say, look at all the engagement I'm getting. Yeah, I'm doing something right. No, you're not. Right. I forgot even what the original question was, but
that was great. That's a great story. I think just how then, because you've continued to do music and release things and find ways to promote it, and just how that filters your view on marketing. But I think that's how, like what you just said, you have a natural compass for intent past whatever metrics because of how you've come into it. Is that fair, do you think?
Dude, I mean, that's you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly it. And when you think about demand gen, connecting all these dots, it's the same thing, for example, as running PPC. Marketers who don't look beyond the front end metrics, like cost per acquisition, for example, because that's what a lot of CFOs like hearing, hey, we lowered our cost per acquisition from this to this. All right, cool. But what did the back end of that look like? Did we lower our cost per acquisition because we went after shittier quality traffic and leads, and therefore there was worse pipeline and worse revenue performance, and we got less customers? Those are all the things you have to be thinking about. And I actually think PPC is some of the hardest marketing today, given how competitive it is, how cost per clicks have skyrocketed. In the world of UCaaS and VoIP, you're looking at $80 a click and above. And that's just for the click. And now, considering when most products are not that expensive, $20 a seat, and most traffic and clicks are for SMB customers,
right?
It's a scary math equation. It doesn't look very good. So, back to the question of what is demand gen about? You do need to be thinking more like a business owner instead of a marketer, and that's how I would categorize it.
Yeah, I love that. I love non-traditional paths, and I think partially, there's all these different terms now. Like there's like social marketer, content marketer, demand gen, blah blah blah, and I guess they're necessary. But to me, it's either like, are you a marketer internally? Like, do you have that sense and awareness for culture and people and the ability to execute, or you kind of don't? Like, it doesn't. you might have an area of specialty, but you have to understand the whole scope to what you just said and how they all interact with each other. And that doesn't mean you need like a bunch of degrees. It just means you need to be able to be sensitive and empathetic towards all those different components and then tie them into the story that you're telling. Right. And that
yeah.
is similar to when you're, or I don't know, cause I don't create music, but I bet it's similar to when you're creating and promoting your music as well.
Yeah. And there's so many parallels, by the way, brilliant, man. Well, super well said. But you know, there's so many parallels you can make between music and B2B marketing.
Which is not like, I don't feel like that's like obvious. I mean, nobody connects the, like you got music, sexy, R&B, and then B2B marketing. You think of like polo shirts, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, here's something I tweeted about yesterday that got a lot of engagement. Website messaging and copywriting. I actually host a Twitter page called Roast My Homepage, Twitter account called Roast My Homepage. Yeah, you should check it out if you want some good laughs. But I stumble across these websites all the time that have this like super obscure, nebulous, jargon-filled headline. And I'm like, what does this company even do? What the hell is this? And so I tweeted about like, all right, imagine you're a hit songwriter. What you have to do is dumb your shit down to the most, like, people want a memorable hook, something they can sing along with and repeat. And if you're a B2B company, you should be thinking about your messaging in a similar way. And then you can even take it further, right? Like content gating content. Imagine if musicians gated their music. Nobody would listen.
No.
Unless you're Drake. Right?
Yeah, that's how Titles tried to start. Remember?
Yeah. It didn't work.
No.
It didn't work. They failed. You know, and Joe Rogan with the Spotify deal, exclusive deal with Spotify, there are diehard Joe Rogan fans that are like, all right, cool, whatever. But if you're a B2B company and you're not Gong, you're going to really, you know, have a hard time with this. But getting back to the example of like, imagine if musicians gated their content, it would go nowhere.
Right.
Why do musicians make music? So that it can be shared, heard, and consumed. Musicians want their music to be consumed. Mm-hmm. They don't just do it so they can listen to it in their room by themselves.
Right.
And, you know, and so like if you're a B2B company, you should be thinking like a musician. I want the content that I create to be shared and consumed. I don't want to gate it so that nobody will read it and consume the message. And then if you think about that, it ties into the measurement strategy that's all fucked up. Companies are creating content to gate it, to produce leads. And instead, it should be, we're creating content so that it can be consumed, so that customers can be educated, so they can understand how our solution helps the market. And then when it's time, they'll come and raise their hand and buy because they've been educated and influenced. Mm-hmm. And ideally, if you can throw this in there, that's even better. Entertained in some way.
100%.
Get them to stop scrolling somehow. But that's the parallel, man. It's, you know, songwriting is meant to be consumed. B2B content should be meant to be consumed. And that is the disconnect.
Yeah, it's a great analogy. And it's just taking the first part of that a little further. Like you talked about the song itself. I think sometimes musicians, like, you know, indie or whatever, it can get like, oh, I'm doing it for the music. And so then like, it's this weird, like 10-minute song that nobody wants to hear or whatever. And like, that's what we do though, as marketers, with such introspective, content. And I just wrote about this for our daily show that a lot of times I think we get in our own heads as marketers about like what the execution has to be. And so like, for example, like you said, if you make a good hook, you want to play that over and over again because people like it. They want to hear it. They want to feel it. And so for some reason though, with content, a lot of times we make one good thing and then we're like, okay, we got to follow that exact same format and not use that same thing, but like make duplicates of it over and over and over again. It's like if that was the case, you know, there would be no reruns of Seinfeld or Friends that are constantly on the TVs at the gyms, that, you know what I mean? Or like there's a reason that people, just as humans, when we find something we like or we think is entertaining, to your point, we're going back to that thing, no matter how many times we've already seen it. And that's what we're doing as marketers. But for some reason, it's just hard, especially in the B2B space, to get over that and just be comfortable, leaning on something that audiences have signaled they like. I don't know what it is, but it's just an interesting fact.
Yeah. That is a really interesting point, and it's something that I had known it's like, this in the back of your mind, you just never really, like, no one ever really talks about it or calls it out.
Right.
So yeah, that is an interesting one for sure.
Cool. Okay, so great run at Nextiva. You obviously have this history of building brands and in a specific way that I think is very sought after right now, especially the way that just the economy is moving, right? Like,
yeah,
back in the day, it was a part. Now it's like it is everything. And when I say it, I mean, whatever you want to call it, digital, demand gen, this ecosystem we play in content. So just looking into your crystal ball a little bit, looking into the next few years, what are you looking at that has you excited or has you, interested? Or I mentioned before NFTs. You're like, dude, I don't even know anything about NFTs. Me either. I just put it out because I know it's like on social. So what is it that you're excited about?
Yeah. Well, I think professionally, I think what I'm excited about is, like, maybe, thinking about where am I going to be in my life? I just turned 33 this year. I feel like I'm really entering, like, my prime time stride. I finally have, like, the knowledge, the wisdom, the network, the experience to do something, like, really big. And, in resigning from Nextiva, I didn't have anything lined up next. The reason why I resigned was because I felt like I was getting too comfortable, and that I had basically had capped out in what I could basically learn. I want to try new tactics, new strategies. And if I stayed at Nextiva for another year or two, it would just be more of the same. And, like, continuous learning and growth is, like, important to me. So in terms of what I'm excited about and what's next, it's like figuring out where my life is going to take me and what I'm going to do. And I never thought I'd be in this position, because I remember not being able to get a job in 2010. Nobody would hire me. Nobody would give me a look. I was a nobody, dude. I had nothing. I had no credibility, no credentials, no proven skills. And to get an agency to take a shot on me, unproven kid from the Bronx, I knew that all I needed was one shot. And that I would outwork everyone and hustle my way into, kicking ass. And then, 10 years later, here I am, like, now in the opposite position, where companies want me to join them, and, like, I have to decide what I want to do. But what I'm excited
Congrats,
about,
dude. Congrats on that.
Thank you, man. It's not easy.
No,
but thank you. And so what am I excited about? There's a couple of different directions I can take my career at this point. One is joining, like, a traditional sort of enterprise B2B company that has expensive products, working with sales really closely, long sales cycles, do a mix of channels where it's inbound and outbound demand gen, where predominantly in my career, it's been all inbound. I've been, like, a real inbound mad scientist, if you want to call it that. And, trying my hand at some outbound and ABM techniques would be super cool. So that's one route. The other route is going B2C and going a route that has no sales component, no manual human sales component to it at all, where it's just website checkout and it's marketing control, the revenue environment. That's another route that has me very excited. Entrepreneurship is something that's also been kind of, not like that door is, like, I feel like there's, like, a knock there that I maybe can't ignore that much longer. Yeah. And I don't know what that is, but there's something inside me saying, like, I need to pursue that at some point. And I feel like it may not be right now, but I think I have one or two more big runs left in me in terms of, like, in-house marketing before I go that solo wolf, lone wolf, or entrepreneurial route. And then just, like, cool. On a personal, and then just, like, on a personal level, like, what am I going to do next with music? I don't know what that is right now. I got to figure it out, but I'm excited about all these things. And then I think, like everyone else, like, during the pandemic, I became kind of an investment nerd. just learning a ton about like crypto stocks. Like, you know, I wasn't one of those Robinhood dudes that got rich off Dogecoin or anything like that, but that's been cool to, you know, really get into as well. So
yeah, that's cool. I want to ask you something back on your, like, I think we have had, and I didn't know this, but somewhat similar paths coming up, in that I was similar. So I had no credentials, got somebody gave me a chance in an agency. Shout out Gene, one of my mentors still to this day. And that kind of got levered into a bunch of different things. And so when I was in the height, I would say, of like my external career, it was at VaynerMedia, and I got a promotion, and I knew if I don't jump, this is going to be too much for me to like walk away from, because I really liked it there, and I really liked the people and all that. And still to this day, there's like this little bit of fear that I think that just drives me, because I know I'm just older, but I'm still the guy who like Gene was nice to. And that's why I've had like do you have any of that in there, or is it just, you know, you've overcome that over time?
Oh no, I think you aren't a true human. You're a cyborg if you don't feel that. Right. Like no matter, I think, how much success you have, whenever the time comes for you to do what's next, there's always like, all right, now I got to outdo what I just did. Going back to music, you know, am I going to be a one-hit wonder, or am I going to be able to top my last hit? You know, like that's what I feel like, you know, like, damn, I kicked ass at Pipedrive. I kicked ass at Sales Hacker. I kicked ass at Nextiva. Now the stakes are even bigger. It's going to be more responsibility, bigger job title. You know what I'm saying? Probably managing a larger team, bigger stakes. Damn, the pressure just continues mounting and mounting. And so I think everybody has a little bit of that imposter syndrome. I know I certainly do. And, you know, and people hearing me would probably be surprised to hear me say that, because you know, from the outside looking in, it's like, damn, this guy's been successful. He's, you know, done well. But yeah, dude, I have it as well. But I'll tell you one thing. In this process of interviewing, I've in the last like month and a half, I've interviewed so much, like at least 40 companies.
Wow.
And yeah, and it's been fascinating. It truly has been fascinating. I've learned a ton about myself. And just like, I think, you know, getting that validation of where is my worth, what is my level of desirability in this talent marketplace. I got into very late stage rounds for even CMO roles at like Series B companies. And I don't think I'm anywhere. Yeah, dude. And I never even thought in my life I would even get to that level of consideration. But just knowing that I got that far was like, all right, damn, maybe I'm not that bad. Yeah, maybe I'm doing something right. But no, in the back of my head, dude, it's always like, shit, I am just kind of winging this like everyone else. Like no one truly has this shit figured out, man. Like, look, at the end of the day, I'm going into my next role winging it. Just like I winged it at Nextiva, just like I winged it at Sales Hacker, just like I winged it at Pipedrive, just like I winged it at the first agency I ever worked at. You know, we're all just winging it in one way, shape, or form. And I think that is kind of a humbling realization.
I was about to say the same thing. I think being aware of that and embracing it, you know, makes you better, and because you're going to be more open to ideas, you're going to be less careful as to where they come from. You're just going to be more utilitarian. And so I think that humility goes a long way. But dude, this was fun. This is kind of all over the place. I know we kind of bounced around, but I always enjoy talking to you and hearing about your journey and what's got you excited to go and, you know, coming down the pike here. So before we roll out, where can people check out, follow what you're doing, and definitely your music as well?
Yeah, definitely. Well, you can just search me in Google, Gaetano DiNardi, and you'll yeah, of course, an SEO guy would have my own shit optimized. But yeah, you know, you can. My personal website is officialgaetano.com. That's me on like social media handles as well. You can find me anywhere, basically. Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, appreciate you joining the show, and we'll catch up with you soon.
All right. Thanks, Adam. Appreciate you.